Well, that's a heck of a way to do it. I guess if you're going to go to Duke, you're going to play on the road. Everybody's going to be counting you out. You're done. Your season's over. Why not? Go knock off the number 7 team in the country on the road. Get Pitt's first win at Cameron in 45 years or so. It was back to 1979, February of 1979. Almost 45 years since Pitt beat Duke at Cameron. The internet told me today that Jeff Capel was 2-0 against the spread in Cameron as Pitt's head coach. I guess he's 3-0 now as the Panthers beat the Blue Devils 80-76. A heck of a game from Pitt. I mean, whatever you want to say, and there's a lot. There's a lot of storylines about this game. In this game, there are a lot of different things we can say about this game. We're going to say a lot of things about this game, but the resilience and just not quitting. I mean, the heart that Pitt showed. Now, you could show heart and be really resilient when the shots are falling, and the shots were falling tonight, no doubt. But this is a Pitt team that has struggled to make those shots. And tonight, those shots finally fell, and they showed what kind of team they can be when the shots do fall. Blake Hinson was making shots. Jaylen Low was making shots. Ishmael Leggett was driving and finishing. Bub Carrington had a huge three late in the game in the final 4 minutes. Federico scored 9 points. He made a free throw. They got a lot of the things that I think you thought they were capable of this season. A lot of the things you thought would make this team successful or give this team a chance to be successful this season. Those things happen, and they showed what kind of team they can be when those things happen, when the shots fall, when Blake Hinson is making his shots. This is the kind of team they can be. But it wasn't just Hinson. Hinson was great tonight. There's no question. Borderline out of control, but he wasn't the only one. I mean, Jaylen Low continues to be a huge story. He has now scored 74 points in the last 6 games. Let's do the quick math on that. What that averages out. He was averaging, let me see. He scored 17 tonight, 74 in the last 6 games. He's now averaging more than 12 points per game over the last 6. He's been outstanding. And just game by game growth and development. We got a lot to get into. I'm getting into the nitty-gritty details and the specific things. You're supposed to start out broad on a show like this, a post-game show, and then work down into the details and the this and the that. And people are rolling in on the live stream, on the chat here. We appreciate it. It's the live Panther-Lair show, of course, here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Glad to have you with us here on a Saturday night in the aftermath of Pitt Duke. You know what we do here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We have the daily morning Pitt videos Monday through Friday. We have our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night. Me and Jim Hammock get together for a live Pitt talk for about an hour, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock every Wednesday night. We have post-game press conferences and stuff like that, and we'll have coverage. Jim is down in Durham tonight. He'll have coverage from the game. He'll have post-game videos and everything. But we also do these post-game live shows, and they're some of the most fun things that we do. We do them after all the football games. We're doing them after the road basketball games, so we did it after the Syracuse game. That wasn't so much fun. We did it after the Louisville game, which was a little bit more enjoyable. And now here we are after Pitt knocks off number 7 Duke on the road, 80-76, an outcome that none of us predicted. I don't think any among us predicted a win tonight. I know the Panther-Lair.com staff, we made our staff picks today, and everybody predicted a Pitt loss. I predicted Pitt would cover just because, like I said, I read on the internet that Jeff Capel's 2-0 against the spread coaching at Cameron. But I couldn't go so far as to predict a Pitt win because I couldn't go so far as to predict that some of these individual outcomes, would actually happen, but they did, and the end result was a victory. So before we move on, we always ask you to do these things: like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content, like this live stream. I mean, we talked about starting this thing at 10:15, and then they spent like 8 minutes reviewing a play and getting it wrong. We'll talk about the review in a second, and the officiating is certainly going to be part of the conversation tonight. Not the top of the conversation, but it's up there. It's something worth discussing. But anyway, that pushed us back, so we ended up starting whatever time we started. Who knows? Let's see, about 10:30 or something like that. We started almost 15 minutes late. But if you want to make sure you don't miss any of it, if you want to make sure you're tuned in when if you want to make sure you're tuned in when we start, the way to do it is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and turn on your notifications. And that way you'll get an alert whenever we go live. You won't miss any of these live streams. All right, lots of chat, lots of comments and questions jumping in there, and we're going to get to those. I'm going to get to as many as we can tonight during the post-game show. Remember, if you want to make sure your comment gets read or your question gets answered, you can be a super chatter. Go down to the bottom of the screen. There's a little $sign. You click that. Kick a couple bucks to the podcast. We appreciate your support when we make sure we read your comment and your question, like our good friend Michael B., who's always a super chatter on all the post-game shows, and we appreciate him. And so we're going to get the whiskey out for our friend Michael B. We like to do this on the post-game shows as well. So we'll get our Pennsylvania straight bourbon whiskey. We'll fill it up into Michael B. and a win at Cameron. That's the way to start it. All right, Michael B., what do you got? It says, Chris, I am so shocked and ecstatic right now. Fetty looked like the player from last season with his best game this year by far. But I think this outcome shows where Blake goes, this team goes, and the refs sucked. It probably was Federico's best game of the season, 4 of 5 from the field, scored 9 points. He made a free throw. He had 5 rebounds, fouled out of the game. He converted multiple lobs at one point. I'd have to look back through my notes. I think on almost like back-to-back possessions, he converted multiple lobs. He looked a little more solid with the ball. I thought he played pretty solid defense. Kyle Filipowski had a pretty quiet 19 points, really. 5 of 10 from the floor, 6 of 7 from the free throw line. He made 3 3-pointers, and that's really where he did his it's where he did most of his damage. I mean, he got 19 points and 5 rebounds. Also committed 5 turnovers. I thought Filipowski was sloppy tonight. I thought he seemed frustrated at times. Maybe he's just always kind of playing that way, but it didn't seem to be his best game. Federico can take some credit for that. He played 27 minutes in this one, but it felt like he was out there the entire time. And he really was until he fouled out. I forget when he fouled. He fouled out in the final 5 seconds, but I feel like Federico played most of the second half. I didn't think they subbed a whole lot in the second half. Yeah, Guillermo played 9 minutes, and Fetty played 11. But it was a good game. I mean, he still had some, befuddling moments. He still had some moments where you just said, like, what are you doing? Have you touched a basketball before? But he got some good rebounds. What did I say he finished with? He finished with 5 rebounds. And I think overall, I think he looked solid down there. I thought he did a decent job. He blocked 2 shots. One of his rebounds was an offensive rebound. So, pretty good game. Actually, if you want to go by plus minus, which they put in the official box score, Federico was a plus 11. The only player who was better was Bub Carrington, who was a plus 12. Zach Austin was a plus 9. Jaylen Low was a plus 5. Blake Hinson was a plus 7. The other 3 guys, Leggett, Jefferson, Guillermo, were minuses. Plus minus is a little bit of a weird stat. You never know what to look into it, but Federico, plus 11 on that. Good game for him. As far as Blake Hinson, yeah, absolutely. Look, if Blake Hinson shoots 8 of 10 and makes 7 of 7 3-pointers, and grabs 8 rebounds and has 24 and 8, yeah, you're probably going to win most games. You're in good shape. I just can't get past the emergence of Jaylen Low. We could talk about how good Blake Hinson was tonight. We could talk about all the shots he made. He made huge shots. He had at least 2 3-pointers I can think of that were late in the shot clock. One off an out-of-bounds play. A long pass over to Federico, who got the pass to Hinson, and he drained the shot. Right as the shot clock was going out. He had one other that was late in the shot clock. He was great. He was the MVP of tonight's game in a lot of ways. But Jaylen Low just continues to grow right in front of us. I mean, and just, more and more impressive And you can look at so many different things. He made a huge three with 43 seconds left to go and made it a 1-point game into a 4-point game. He drained 2 free throws with less than 10 seconds to go. This was shortly after he made only 1 of 2. But they were absolutely huge because, if he only makes 1 there, it's a 3-point game, which became really relevant at the other end when they fouled Proctor to shoot 3 free throws. But Low is able to knock down both of those. He makes it a 4-point game and really ultimately puts it out of reach. But it just felt like every bucket he made was huge. So he had the 20-point game against Syracuse where he was the driving force behind Pitt even being in that game. Anytime I think they cut it to single digits in the second half twice, and both times it was because of what Jaylen Low was doing. And then tonight he scores 17 points. He gets 11 in the second half. He had 11 points and 3 assists in the second half. So he scored or assisted on 6 out of Pitt's 14 field goals. He played great. And continues to play great and continues to rise to the occasion. I think he rose to the occasion tonight. It wasn't too big for him. He's playing in one of the most storied venues in college basketball. He's got everything on the line. His team, which has lost 4 out of 5 games, has a chance for a signature win, a huge win, the biggest win of the season. And he's getting the ball in some crucial moments, largely because Bub Carrington's in foul trouble. And so, I think they would have stuck with Low a lot anyway in the second half. But when Carrington got that 4th foul, there was no option now. Now it had to be Jaylen Low's game. Jaylen Low had to lead the team, and he absolutely stepped up and did it. And I thought played outstanding. Second half, 3 of 8 from the floor for Low. 3 of 8. He makes 2 of 2 from beyond the arc. 3 of 4 for 3 of 4 free throws. He gets 3 assists, no turnovers in the second half. No turnovers. As a matter of fact, Pitt only had 5 turnovers in the second half, and 3 of those were Ishmael Leggett, who actually, I was sort of surprised Leggett was out for a lot in the second half. Even though Carrington went out with 4 fouls, Leggett went out at the 5:16 mark and didn't come back in until the very end, that final minute, actually the final 20 seconds. And I thought Leggett was playing well. I thought Leggett had a good game overall. He scored 11 points. He was 5 of 10 from the floor. He was willing to get in there and be tough and be physical and sort of sacrifice his body. I think Ishmael Leggett's going to have a lot of areas getting iced down tonight. A lot of shoulders, elbows, knees getting iced because he was willing to just drive into those guys and bang and be tough and physical. And he got a lot out of it. I mean, it's remarkable that he only attempted 3 free throws in this game. It really is. For as much contact as he was absorbing while shooting, to only attempt 3 free throws, it's a pretty remarkable number. I got to say, it's a pretty remarkable number. But I thought he came up with some clutch baskets. Fetty made some big baskets. Bub Carrington made a huge 3. With 3:19 to go, it was 69-67, and Carrington drained a 3. And it was a moment of clarity for Bub Carrington because he got the ball, and he was ready to start driving to his right, and Ryan Young sort of anticipated it and backed off and waited for him to drive, and Bub hesitated. He recognized it. He said, wait, I got an open shot. I'm going to take this shot. And he does, and he drains it. And it was a wide open shot. But we've seen him have those opportunities. We've seen a lot of these guys have those kinds of opportunities a lot over the last 5 games, and they've missed those shots. But he drained it tonight. And it was a huge basket that, like I say, it turned a 69-67 game, a 2-point game, into a 5-point game. Huge. Huge. And I'll say this, all right? I'll say this. That review that took 10 minutes and went way too long, and I kind of agree with Wes Durham and Dan Bonner that you can't see the ball move. And even more than that, if you have to look that long, there isn't conclusive evidence to overturn it. If you have to look that long. Now, by contrast, and I understand they couldn't review this or didn't review it or whatever, the next possession, the next Duke possession after Bub Carrington hit that 3 was when, who was it? Number 1 for them. Caleb Foster. Caleb Foster saving a ball out of bounds, throws it in off of, I think, Jaylen Low. and the ball bounces out, and they call it a Duke ball when he clearly was standing. His foot was out of bounds. It was touching the ground when he threw the ball at Jaylen Low. That should have been possession Pitt. And so even if they erred on the side of caution or just said that there wasn't conclusive evidence and left Pitt with the ball on that long review, that would have balanced it out on teams getting jobbed on calls. But they didn't. They overturned it and gave the ball to Duke. It's remarkable. The fouls ended up being 20-16. 20 called on Pitt, 16 called on Duke. But Duke fouled intentionally. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of their 16 fouls were intentional at the very end. So really, they had 12 fouls called on them. 20-12. And of course, Pitt going, 7 fouls. At what point? They were, I thought I had written it down when they went in the bonus, but, 6 minutes into the second half or something like that. I mean, the foul calls were ridiculous. It just the how many were getting called and how few were getting called on Duke at the other end. I almost sort of, and I don't want to really waste too much time on the officiating because this was a great win for Pitt, and there were a lot of positive things to talk about that we don't have to, like I say, waste too much time on this. But I almost joked at one point that Pitt needs to work on balance more because all their guys, all the Pitt players seem to end up laying on the floor every possession. Somehow, I don't know. Those guys, they just must fall over. Stop walking. Maybe something's wrong with their shoes that they can't keep themselves up, or they're just absorbing a lot of contact and there's no whistle. But it seemed to happen a lot. But Michael B., I'm glad you appreciate that game. I'm glad you had fun during that game. I know Michael B., you are a fan who you're very passionate and you swing with the wind, and that's understandable. But I'm pretty sure you also believe this team was going to lose out. So, hey, you got one, right? Who knows what the rest of them will bring, but you got one. They didn't lose out. Let's see. Michael Headley, another Michael, is a super chatter, says, keep up the great pick content. Hard to win on the road when you shoot half the free throws as the opponent, but this game shows what the team is capable of. Yeah, I compared the foul numbers, 20-16. Free throw numbers, Duke shot 28 and Pitt shot 16. And again, of Pitt's 16 free throws, 2, 4, 6, 8. Half of them came in the final 26.7 seconds. So, for 39 minutes and 34.3 seconds, Pitt attempted 8 free throws. Come on, man. I mean, come on. Like, I feel like it's one of those cliches, oh, you never get calls at Duke, and, Cameron, the calls always go this way. This is how it always goes. And I usually, push back against things like that. I'm usually like, come on, give me a break. It's not really like that. 8 free throws until the final 30 seconds of the game. You have to overcome a lot of adversity to win games sometimes. And sometimes some of that adversity is it's that kind of adversity. Numbers wise, so like we said, Blake Hinson scored 24, Jaylen Low had 17, Ishmael Leggett scored 11. Pitt as a team shot 50.8% from the field, 50% from 3. They made 10 of 20 from beyond the arc. Blake Hinson was a perfect 7 of 7. Jaylen Low went 2 of 5, and Bub Carrington made 1 of 2. Zach Austin missed all 4 of his attempts from deep. Ishmael Leggett and Guillermo Diaz-Graham missed 1 each from downtown. Pitt shot 10 of 16 from 3, but they out-rebounded Duke 32-25. Maybe not having Mark Mitchell played a factor in that. I'm not going to really give Duke too much, they had injuries. Mitchell and who's the other one? I'm drawing a blank. Doesn't matter. Roach. Oh, Mitchell and Roach were out, and how could they win without the? Well, you still have Filipowski, you still have Proctor, and you still have McCain, who scored 20 points. You still had some real talent out on the court. Foster added 16. Proctor at 11. I don't want to hear about how being down bad and missing guys. I mean, you still have all this 5-star talent on the court. You still have a really good team, and that's not why missing Mark Mitchell or Jeremy Roach isn't why Blake Hinson made 7 threes. It's not why Jaylen Low was, every bit up to the challenge of facing Duke at Cameron. So I don't have any interest in Duke's excuses there. So, all right, let's see what else you guys are talking about. Oh, Biz is a super chatter, says this was a big win. You got that right. It absolutely was. That was a huge win for Pitt, and it came. I mean, they absolutely needed it. We talked last. On Tuesday we talked about the Syracuse game being a must-win game, and obviously they lost that, and good friend Smenges on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com was giving me a bit of the business for overusing the must-win cliche, and rightfully so. But they needed that win in the worst way. And part of the reason they needed that Syracuse win so bad, part of the reason that was a must-win game, part of the reason they really needed to get that one is that this trip to Duke was coming up next. And this was the absolutely no way they can win that game. So if you're going to get a second win, you know what I mean? If you're going to go, if you're going to somehow start stacking some ACC wins, you better do it against Syracuse because you're definitely not doing it at Duke. Well, here they are. They got it done, in a lot of ways. And it was good to see Blake Hinson return to form. I think it was good to see Ishmael Leggett drive like he did. I was really impressed with Leggett in this game. I really thought Leggett, I mean, I'm not going to give him, I might make, all right, if it was hockey, you were going to give out 3 stars, right? I mean, obviously Hinson's 1 and Low is 2. I think it's obvious. Who would be your 3rd star? I was leaning a little bit toward Ishmael Leggett just because I think he made a lot of big plays for this team in this game. But I mean, would you give it to him or would you give it to Federico? Those are probably the 2 main candidates, right? I was just looking down at plays I had starred, and yeah, 7:26 to go in the game. Jaylen Low drains a 3. It was 62-61 Duke. Low hits a 3 and makes it 64-62. Pretty impressive. I was trying to see if that was the last time if that was when Pitt took the lead for good. It's not. Filipowski man and 1 at the other end to make it 65-64. And then Hinson, that was when he had the out of bounds play, went to Federico over to Hinson. He hit a 3 to make it 67-65. And Pitt took the lead for good there. And took off. Who would be your 3rd star? Ishmael Leggett? Federico? Let's check in the comments, see what people are saying. Let me see. Brian Williams says Federico. PG Jeans says Leggett. Brian Williams, follows up Fetty for defense and dunks. Bill Florigen's a super chatter. Says, up at 7 Springs tonight watching the game. Great win. Hopefully it builds some momentum. That's always going to be something you'll look ahead to. It's kind of funny because as I look ahead, that could build momentum, but they got Georgia Tech on Tuesday. Georgia Tech should be a team that they can beat, should be another winnable game. I actually think it's good that Pitt is going on the road. I think being on the road can keep you slightly uncomfortable in a way that I think will be good for this team. I think if they were coming right back home after a big win and facing, whoever, like somebody that they, would be expected to beat, maybe you increase the chances of a letdown. You'd like to think that they're going to go on the road. They're going to feed off the crowd energy again, the negative crowd energy, kind of like they did, I think, tonight, and give them a chance to, maybe be less likely. I don't want to say to overlook Georgia Tech, but to not have the kind of focus that they need. That would probably, that's got to be one of the big lessons, I think, from Jeff Capel that comes out of this game, is that this game was a real demonstration of how you really, for 40 minutes, just cannot let up. Because, particularly when you're facing a talented opponent like Duke, but really any team in the ACC, they're going to get baskets. They're going to make baskets and get buckets and score. And you've got to be able to come up with a response. You've got to be able to answer. And Pitt was able to answer. There was obviously Pitt was, led the entire first half. Duke went on a little bit of a run. I mean, Pitt led almost the entire first half. There was a brief stretch where Duke was ahead. Duke went on a run where they made a bunch of threes in a row and cut it from 21-10 to 21-19. But that was really their only back-to-back field goals in the game, or in the first half. And then the second half, I don't think they ever really, just kind of looking through the notes, they never hit back-to-back field goals. They had some stretches where they'd have like free throws in a row, but yeah, I don't think Duke hit back-to-back field goals at all in the second half. Well, I guess, okay, right near the end, after that bogus out of bounds play, that they called out on Pitt, but it ended up, but it should have been out on Duke. With 2:44 to go, McCain made a layup to make it 72-69, and then he drove to make it 72-71. That was about a minute and a half apart, but those were back-to-back field goals by Duke, and that's it in the second half. My point is Pitt had an answer. Pitt always came up with an answer in this game, particularly in the second half, and that enabled them to keep Duke largely at arm's length. Now, again, Duke took a lead in the second half, a brief lead, and it didn't last long. It lasted about 32 seconds before Blake Hinson drained a three to take the lead back. So Pitt was pretty much in charge of this thing throughout the second half. They just had to, I guess they were down for about a minute and a half or so, roughly. But they were able to come up with answers. And we talked about that a lot after the Syracuse game, too, of needing players who could make a basket to shut down another team's run or to continue their own run. They needed guys who could step up and make a shot when the team needed a shot. And I think they got that tonight. They hadn't been getting it. There was another point where Duke was ahead in the second half. They hit 2 free throws to go up 50-49. Hinson drained back-to-back three-pointers to make it 55-50. The Jaylen Low 3 was 7.5 minutes to go from 62-61 to 64-62. Big shots. Bub Carrington making a 3 with less than 4 minutes to go. Low making another 3 with less than 50 seconds to go. Making big shots when the team needed a shot, because all those situations, Hinson makes the back-to-back threes. Pitt is down 1. Hinson makes back-to-back threes, and now Pitt is up 5. Low's first 3. Pitt is down 1. Low makes the 3. Now they're up 2. Carrington's 3. Pitt was up 2, but he hits the 3 to extend it to 5. And then Low's 3. Pitt is up 1. With less than a minute to go, and he drains a 3 to make it a 4-point game again. All big shots. They needed big shots, and they got it. And they got it from the 3 guys who right now look like they should be the main candidates to hit those shots. Blake Hinson, Jaylen Low, Bub Carrington. And maybe in that order right now. And I think Carrington's still figuring things out. I think Low has made some major steps. And I think Jaylen Low's continued emergence is going to help Bub Carrington find his place. I mean? I think it's... And what I mean by that is I think it's going to help Bub Carrington settle in. After the way Bub Carrington started this season, and by extension his career, he probably started feeling pressure like he had to be the guy to lead the team. And that will eventually be a role for him, maybe even later this season, but it's not the role that they need from him right now. They need him to be a guy who just makes plays. And he doesn't have to be the one who takes all the pressure on himself, but just make plays. And maybe if Low emerges, and if Hinson gets right and gets hot, maybe Carrington can find his space with those two, in between them and around them, and even separate from them sometimes, and just make plays, which is what he's really good at. So, positive developments there. I think certainly with Blake Hinson shooting, and and the way Lowe has been playing. And then I think Carrington, you can start. I would start. I would look for him to start making some steps there. We were talking about the third star of the game, Blake Hinson being 1, Jaylen Low being 2. Comments coming in. Peninsula P says Fetty. Robert Johnson says Fetty. Paul Moore says Ishmael Leggett gets my 5.7 third star of the game. ZC717 says Federico. He did hit a big free throw late and played some good defense. SA Outlaw says Fetty. He had a big rebound near the end of that game. Who else? Michael B comes in as a super chatter and says Fetty is definitely the third star after Hinson and Lowe. Also, what was impressive was that whenever Duke made a run and even took a lead, Pitt answered quick. Yeah, I absolutely agree, Michael B. That stood out to me. They were able to answer Duke's runs. They never let Duke pull away with this game. I mean, Duke put Pitt down in the early in the first half of that game in Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Just put their foot on their neck, and I'm not going to say Pitt gave up, but they might as well have. You know, for all intents and purposes, they did. But in this game, Duke was never able to create that separation. Duke was never able to create that environment where Pitt felt like they were out of the game. And I think that hope kept them alive. And their shots, making shots, kept them alive. You know what I mean? And kept the confidence up because that kept the game and probably put some extra pressure on Duke and forced Duke to feel a little bit of pressure because they weren't able to pull away from a team that they were beating by 30 on the road, on the other team's home court just like a week and a half ago. So I think I think there was a lot to like out of this game. What can they build on going forward? Can they build on it going forward? I definitely think they can build on it going forward. After that Syracuse game, Jeff Capel talked a whole lot about how the players have to figure things out. And not just about like what they do on the court, but how they work together and how they fight through adversity and how they stick together as a team and how they lift each other up. They have to figure some of those things out. And he said, this is a tough time right now. And guys are having to figure things out. And maybe a game like this can give all of them a boost, a boost in confidence, a boost in energy, a boost in belief that they are, they're not the team that lost to Duke. It got killed by Duke at home and lost to Carolina and lost to Syracuse twice. I mean, they are that team. Those things happen. You can't undo those things. But a game like this reinforces, I think, the potential they've got and the ceiling they've got and what they can reach to if they stick to it. You know what I mean? If they keep fighting, they keep battling like they did tonight. I mean, I think it was a good demonstration. Let's see. Scroll through lots of comments and questions. We'll try and get as many as we can here. Homer Simpson says, seeing Blake Hinson stand on top of the scorer's table with his hands up talking crap to the Cameron Crazies is absolutely priceless. Peninsula P followed up, Blake Hinson standing on business and on the scorer's table. You know what I love about college sports? And I think we forget this angle of it. One thing that's really fun, and I think we forget this angle because of what we make these players into and, how we treat them like professionals, quite a bit. But like when it comes down to it, and I often think about this in football and basketball games and any college sport, where you have a student section, like you've got the students, like the student section, right, cheering, and then you've got the guys on the court or on the field, and they're college students too. You know what I mean? They're college students as well. They literally are their peers. And we often forget about that. We don't think about Kyle Filipowski being a peer to, some dudes in the front of the Oakland Zoo. But they are. I mean, they could be in class together. Or like Filipowski and one of the guys that, some of the Cameron Crazies. Or like Blake Hinson could be in class with guys at the zoo. Or, or Ishmael Leggett could be in a class with some girls from the zoo or something. They're peers. And I that creates a funny sort of thing where like Blake Hinson's not getting on the scorer's table and like, showboating in front of a bunch of like adults and like people at the Cavs game or something like that. He's doing it in front of his peers, fellow like 19, 20, 21-year-olds. I know Blake Hinson's like 24 or something, but still, he's a college student, right? Can't play the game if you're not a college student. And so he's up there in front of his peers, sort of, cheesing it up. And I always think that's kind of a fun angle. And like, it's not like, when the student section is yelling at the players on the court, it's not like, Jack Nicholson at the Lakers game yelling at an 18-year-old Kobe Bryant or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, they're peers. And I think that's sort of a fun angle. And I think, Blake obviously has to be careful with what he does, and he needs to make sure he's staying focused on the game and not letting that stuff affect him too much or spending too much time thinking about it. But on the flip side, it's fun to interact. You're a kid, they're a kid. Like you're a kid and they're kids. And again, Blake Hinson's pretty old, but, same thing. So I think that's a fun angle. Blake Hinson, he's obviously got to be careful. He took the technical foul, which, put him in foul trouble. Ended up with him playing with 4 fouls for most of the game. Obviously helped Duke's foul situation along. And then, gave Duke 1 point. They only made one of those, the technical free throws. But so he's got to be careful with that stuff. But it's fun. It's fun angle of things. Let's see. Homer Simpson said this was the team that we thought we were going to have at the beginning of the year. Yeah, I agree. I think like a team where, Blake Hinson's shooting well. Fetty is giving in, I don't even think you would say 9 points at the beginning of the year, but finishing a few lobs, right? I think is sort of the general expectation. The freshman guards are sort of leading the way in the backcourt with Ishmael Leggett chipping in and being a useful piece there. I think we expected more out of Zach Austin. We expected more out of the Twins. Jorge didn't even see the court tonight. Guillermo played, what did I tell you, 13 minutes, 17 minutes, something like that, 13 minutes. So, not quite what you were expecting there, but in terms of Hinson, Federico, and the guards, I think, yeah, this was more or less the blueprint or the template of what we thought this team was going to be this season. It's just taken until game like 18 to get there, and then we'll see if they can sustain it. Let's roll through here. Wolf HD says not to be pessimistic, but those Syracuse losses really hurt now. Well, I wouldn't say you're being pessimistic there, Wolf HD. I would say that those Syracuse losses really hurt when they happened too. So do they hurt more now? Maybe, but they stung no matter what. Peninsula P says, is this a top 3 win of any team this season? You're going to have to answer that for me. I don't have that good of recall of all the games that have been played this season. This is Pitt's best win this season. I'll give you that. Wolf HD says, if Bub can get back to how he was playing earlier this year, along with Low's improvement, they can make the second half of the season interesting. Yeah. I think, if Hinson can score somewhat like he did tonight, and if Low can keep growing and developing and improving, then I think it opens a role for Bub Carrington to not have to be the guy who carries the team, but to be another playmaking option among Hinson, Low, and Ishmael Leggett, really. And if I think if he puts himself into that position, I think if he takes that mentality and that mindset, I think he can really open things up for him. I don't know if he was putting a lot of pressure on himself. I don't know if the way he played early in the season created unrealistic expectations for him, that he put on himself, let alone maybe what was being talked about. I mean, all of a sudden, instantly, we were talking about this guy as a lottery pick, which was pretty unfair to him. And, no matter what he thinks of himself, that creates a lot of unfair expectations. So maybe if he can sort of reset to just being one of the big three or the big four or whatever it is, maybe he can find a new way to sort of flourish and be a little more efficient than he has been in the last few games. I think coming into today, over the last 5 games, he was shooting under 35% from the field. What did he shoot tonight? I forgot what that number was. 3 of 9. So again, under 35% from the field, but he was only 1 of 2 from 3. So I think he made, if nothing else, I think he made better decisions from outside. You know what I mean? I think, it was a great decision to shoot the one that he made, but it wasn't like the other, the Syracuse game. He was 0 of 7 from 3. Now, that's not the kind of game you want from Bub Carrington. I don't think you really want him shooting 7 threes in most games. Obviously, it's easier to say that and do that when Blake Hinson's making a lot of threes, but I don't think you really want Bub Carrington playing in that role anyway. You want him being a guy who can make plays off the dribble and pass and set up his teammates. And he did have 2 assists tonight. Low finished with 6. Low had 17 points and 6 assists. Carrington had 9, 2, and 2. Hinson had 24 points and 8 rebounds. See if anything else jumps out here. Federico and Austin had 5 rebounds each. Leggett and Guillermo had 4 rebounds each. Charlie Solos is a super chatter. He says Blake Hinson went 7 of 7. The degree of difficulty on several of them was very high. Is he back? I don't know if he's back. I don't think he ever left, but this could be a game that maybe it loosens him up a little bit. Maybe he finds that sort of fun Blake Hinson, and not because of how he was like carrying on with the fans and the students, but just letting it fly. Letting it fly. Maybe he was putting too much pressure on himself, early on, or in the last 5 games, last 6-7 games. Maybe he was putting too much pressure on himself, and he needed to get back to the looser Blake Hinson, the more fun Blake Hinson, the let it fly Blake Hinson, which is what he did tonight. He was letting it fly, and just everything was going in for whatever reason. I don't get it. There was some that didn't look like they should have gone in, but they did. I didn't understand it, but it was fun to watch. Let's see. Ron Peterson says Jaylen Low is the key because he forces a defense to account for him. He will drive to the basket regularly where others will not. That'll keep Hinson and Carrington open. Yeah, I agree. And I think every time Low drives and finishes, and every time Leggett drives and finishes, it makes Pitt that much more of a threat to do those things, and it makes defenses have to respect it. And that means defenses are going to help off of Carrington or Hinson outside, and it's going to create more opportunities for those guys to make the shots from outside. And so I think that's a big part of it. I think Jaylen Low is really getting comfortable with the kind of shots he can make, and he's making them. And he's found it out, and I think you can see his confidence growing. I think you saw him try certain shots tonight that maybe he didn't even try against Syracuse during some of the other games. The shots that he might not have had the nerve to try, but tonight playing at Duke, playing a top 10 team on the road, and again, one of the most storied venues in college basketball, he had the nerve to try a few more things. And I have to think that stems from the success he had in the Syracuse game when he scored 20 points. Well, it worked again tonight. He scored 17. Jaylen Low is the best storyline right now, on the team. And it changes, game to game, week to week, it changes. But right now, Jaylen Low is the best storyline on the team. Certainly doesn't hurt to have Blake Hinson going strong again. All right. Let's see. Let's scroll through here, see if there's anything else we want to get. Feels like 45 minutes is a good target or so for these post-game shows. Let's finish out Let's finish out with ZC717. Says, we saw a sharpshooter return in Hinson and a freshman grow up tonight in Jaylen Low with some big shots. I think that's absolutely right. They're going on the road here for a couple games in a row. They've got Georgia Tech on Tuesday in Atlanta and then Miami on Saturday in Coral Gables. So 3-game road stretch before they come home to host Wake Forest and Notre Dame. This is a big stretch here because now you come out of this Duke game, you're feeling pretty confident about what this team might be able to do. They can beat Georgia Tech. They can beat Miami. They can come home against Wake Forest and Notre Dame. Maybe you can start stacking a few wins. They're now 11-7 overall, 2-5 in the ACC. They broke the losing streak, and they did it on the road against a top 10 team. Hard to argue with that. So on that note, Pitt wins 80-76. Big win over Duke. One of the best wins of the Capel era. And certainly the best win of the season to win. This team should be able to build up from, but we'll see. We'll see what they're able to do. Thanks for everybody for tuning in tonight. Everybody who watched the podcast or listened to the podcast later in the week, we appreciate that. All the super chatters and all you guys in the comments and questions. One more super chatter. Brock H2P says, as a Knicks and Pitt fan, Jaylen Low reminds me of a Jalen Brunson. This win couldn't have come in at a bigger time. Need to build off of it. Yeah, it was absolutely a huge win. They needed to beat Syracuse. They weren't able to get that done. And what I said after that game, Brock, was, the real downside of losing that game is now if you're going to reach certain target numbers in terms of wins, now every time you lose one of those winnable games, it puts more pressure on you. You have to win one of the less winnable games to make up the difference. And that's the real challenge. Well, now they just did it. That doesn't make up for both Syracuse games, but it makes up for at least one of them by winning this game. So they were able to sort of get one back in the win column, and then we'll see if they can stack wins here. The schedule sets up for them to have some opportunities to stack wins. Let's see if they can pull it off over the next 2 weeks. It'll be interesting to see. Like I say, after all the road games, we will have live post-game shows, including the Tuesday night game at Georgia Tech. This coming Tuesday, we will go live. So that game is a 7 o'clock game. We'll be live around 9:15, 9:30. Talk to you until 10 o'clock, somewhere around there. We'll be live after the Miami game on January 27th. And, so on and so forth throughout the season. But thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Head over to the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt coverage. Jim Hammett is in Durham. He'll have lots of coverage from this game tonight. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Thanks everybody in the comments and questions and the super chatters. Like and subscribe, and we will talk to you on Monday for the Morning Pit right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.